The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests as individuals, and do not necessarily reflect those of advertisers or sponsors. This show is intended as entertainment and commentary only. The producers strive for verisimilitude, but nothing said on this podcast should be taken as fact by the listener or viewer without performing due diligence.
That existence, the physical universe, is basically playful. There is no necessity for it whatsoever. It isn't going anywhere. That is to say, it doesn't have some destination that it ought to arrive at.
This is Keep Your Hat On, a show by three nerdy nobodies about nothing in particular. Keep Your Hat On is brought to you by the Narrowband Broadcast Network, NBBN. The focus is on you. By PodSquadPDX.com, painless podcasting. And by our currently non-existent supporters through Patreon. Patreon, create on your own terms. On this episode, Robert brings a giant megaphone to the party. Andrew brings a 1-ton steel plate. And we introduce a new hat, who's actually kind of old hat, and is the real brains of this nerdy cabal. I'm your disembodied announcer, Michael Bromage, and now let's get whatever the hell this is started. Here are your hosts, Andrew, Robert, and Chris.
Hello and welcome to Keep Your Hat On, the show where, hell, even we don't know where we're going to go. I'm Andrew Scott, along with my good friend Chris Vicano, and my other good friend Robert Anthony, and our new good friend, Dr. Mark C.E. Peterson. How you doing, guys?
Doing great.
Yeah, somebody awesome. Start talking. There we go.
Yeah.
Well, we're just here, as we say, we're just here. I'm talking to the wrong camera. Good thing I'll fix that in post. We're just here to have a good time, kind of hang out and talk about shit that we find interesting. And we find a lot of shit interesting. But, I don't know, anybody had anything interesting that's happened this past week? I know, Mark, you got your first coronavirus stab.
I got stabbed on Friday by a fabulous young nurse. Of course, at my age now, it's funny. Everybody under 30 looks the same age. I'm having that thing happen.
Oh, that's happening to me, and I'm only in my 50s, buddy.
Yeah, it's weird. Remember when you were in your 20s, or actually remember when you were 15 and you could tell, like, 13-year-olds from 14-year-olds, and like,
oh yeah,
by the time you're 20 they all look like they're 10, and by the time you're 30 they all look like they're 10.
Yeah, and when you were dating somebody who was 1 year older than you were robbing, or somebody was robbing a cradle.
Oh yeah,
it was a big deal.
Yeah, hell yeah.
She's out there, she knows who she is. I will say this though, it's like one of the great things was a lot of, I've had a lot of friends who were twitchy about getting stabbed. It's like, oh, I hate needles and stuff. It's like this nurse was freaking brilliant, and it's like, I don't know if you guys have been stabbed enough can tell when the nurse actually knows what they're doing when they give you the injection. And it occurred to me that that they've had a ton of practice.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, all the oranges that have been stabbed in the name of medical science.
You wonder.
Yeah. No, that's. I had a friend of mine that just went through phlebotomy training, and she was saying, seriously, I've eaten so many goddamn oranges because we just go through them, and so I'm orange Jello, orange. I guess the real good analog is actually not an orange; it's a grapefruit. A grapefruit has very similar surface tension to human skin, and so the next time.
So wait, do you peel it first and then you do that little membrane thing, or do you actually? No,
they're just stabbing at random fruit. Yeah, it's kind of like Fruit Ninja in the medical world. But
when folks are training to be or practicing their tattoo artistry, in the beginning they use grapefruits and oranges.
Grapefruits, oranges, and pig fat and pig skin. Yeah, they'll go out.
I will say.
It's a great way to wind up with some really nice pork belly after you're done.
I guess that would be an awesome approach.
It's a nice side benefit.
I was thinking The best stabbing I ever got actually was probably about 20 years ago. I think I was when I was going to Eastern Europe. And so I had like this slate of immunizations that was, this long. And I'm thinking, oh, great, here we go. I'm going to get about 6 of these in a row. And this woman who looked, by the way, she looked exactly like Janet Reno, which was kind of surreal. She was fantastic. And I actually finally commented on this. And I said, you are awesome with the needle. She goes, I'm an acupuncturist too.
There you go.
Mine was when I was in the hospital for my spinal injury back when I was 15 in 83. Yeah. And I had this one gal coming in, and she was I had to have blood draws twice a day because one of the side benefits of diving into a pool and breaking your neck, of course, is drowning. So I had about I think they said 3/4 gallon of chlorinated water in my lungs, and so they needed to do blood draws and blood gases, and so for 30 days I had 2 blood draws, and this one young nurse was just I have rolling veins, my veins roll, and this one candy striper was just having a hell of a time with me. And if you're out there. If you're out there, my friend, thank you for your care. You were awesome. And you were awesome enough to say, this is so not my gig. And I'm gonna go get the anesthesiologist to come in. And one of the things that a lot of people don't understand about anesthesiology is you are half anesthesiologist and half phlebotomist. Because you gotta wire up everybody. You gotta get it right the first time. And this guy came in and he looked for all the world like he should have been starring in, the thing we do in the shadows. He was as vampire-y a looking dude as possible. And I was terrified of this guy. He came in, and even though I couldn't move, I just clenched up. And I said, I guess I'm being problematic. And he's like, you will be no problem for me. And at that point, I nearly had a spontaneous healing, got up and ran out. But this guy hit me so fast, I didn't know what happened. And then I'm still thinking that he hasn't done anything to me. And again, I was paralyzed, couldn't use my hands, couldn't move. And I got an itch on my nose. And I was like, can I ask a big favor? And he's like, what favor do you need? And I was like, I have an itch on my nose. And he just reached up and went, that the nose? And he just like that. And then I was like, okay, you ready to draw blood? And he's like, oh, I am done. You were in no trouble. Have a nice day. And then glided out without touching the ground with his cape fluttering behind him. So, yeah, I'm glad to hear you got the stab. Rob's fully stabbed, right, Rob?
Yeah.
Let's quick compare vaccines. Mark, which one did you get?
I got Pfizered.
Okay, you got Pfizered. Rob?
I also got Pfizer.
You got Pfizer. Can you advise Mark as to what he's going to look forward to on his second dose? Because I think people might like to hear about that.
Is peanut butter. The first dose, that you get that little sore arm that's kind of akin to like a tetanus shot.
Yeah.
The second one is just as bad, if not worse. You get the added bonus, of course, of at least I had the added bonus of feeling fatigued, overwhelmingly fatigued.
Yeah,
for about 2.
Couple of days.
I was just a couple of days, but it's like one of those things you as they talk about this as being one of the COVID symptoms, you don't really put your head around it until you're in that seat. And it's just, you get up, you move around, you go eat breakfast, and you're ready to just get back into the couch or into the bed.
Right on. Yeah. I think that, it's still better than being done, being better than being hooked up to a respirator.
And technically, we kind of all have been practicing like laying in bed like for the last year. You have to face that.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Although
we're ready. We're kind of ready for this now. Come on, bring that thing.
But yeah, Chris and I are still waiting to get our stabby stabs. It's rather
waiting for that magic text.
Yeah,
from the
exactly.
OHA.
It is. It's weird because I broke my neck. I partial paralysis. I was a former smoker. I quit at the beginning of the pandemic.
Sure.
I have partially paralyzed lungs and a partially paralyzed diaphragm. You'd think I'd have been higher up on the list, but I am not. And then, of course, Chris, you can talk to your own situations.
Yeah, I'm HIV positive hemophiliac with liver cirrhosis from my previous hepatitis C infection, and
you always got to be better than me. You always got to be more than me, don't you?
No, I just am.
Yeah, that's true. No, very, 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 very philosophical of you. But yeah, Chris and it's looking like the last week of this month, right? Still?
Yeah, the mandatory deadline for our group to start, to become eligible, as issued by the governor, is March 29th. So
right,
it could happen before then, but it should definitely happen by then.
Well, we're going to say it, like I say, we're not very political here, but we are going to encourage everybody to get this vaccine, whatever vaccine. Yeah, get the damn shot, whatever is available to you, because the one thing that all the current batch of vaccines have in common is there's chances that you might get COVID-19, but even the Johnson & Johnson shot shows near 100% efficacy at preventing hospitalization and death. Right. So, and that's what I was telling my partner the other day is I'm not fearful of getting a severe respiratory infection. I'm fearful of dying from it with nobody being able to do anything. So if this knocks it down to the point where it's pretty much always survivable, stab me in the fucking face with it. Let's get going. So
it's also going to take out all these variants that have happened. You only get variants when the thing is spread around and had an opportunity to mutate. Right?
Exactly.
Right. Once
the more people get it, the lower the risk of variants.
Exactly.
Emerging.
Once it starts running up against a wall, the variants will naturally go down. And before anybody starts coming at me by saying, you're an audiovisual professional, you don't know what you're talking about, you're not an epidemiologist. No. But my kid is an epidemiologist for the state of Oregon. So I kind of know what I'm talking about by proxy. I listen to my kid. They're a very impressive young person, and they're not actually very young anymore because neither am I, and I keep on getting reminded by that every time I have to get my fat ass up out of the chair and waddle somewhere. But please do everything it takes. We want to get to the other side of this, whatever the other side of this is. I think that's something that's important to say is,
oh man,
it ain't going back to the way it was.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for not saying normal, because that's a confusing term to people, and normal is a very nebulous sort of term.
I don't know what normal meant before the pandemic.
Well, you never knew what normal was, Andrew.
Thanks, boss. Thanks very much. I'll wear that proudly.
We got along so well.
Exactly right. Yeah, I'll wear that proudly. But do what it takes to get to the other side of this, so that we can build something more tenable, more fair for people, and something that we can all smile about. It's been a long while for any of us to be able to truly smile about the lives that we're living. And
forward.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Exactly. You look backward.
For me, it's been since 1980. Yeah, I've been looking forward to. I'd like America back, please.
Right.
The way
exactly.
it was before 1980.
Exactly.
A more equitable world.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah,
that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Where we actually give a shit about people, that'd be nice.
Well, yeah, it's where the selfishness wasn't like, Ayn Rand didn't take over culture at that. Hadn't quite taken over the culture.
Screw whether you get it or not, right? There's data right now to show the Pfizer, does not also cuts down transmissibility.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Who doesn't want that?
do it for your grandma.
Right.
Do it for your neighbor. Do it for your mom, your dad. Do it for your kids.
Well, do it
right?
for the
'Cause if
people
this
that
thing-
you wouldn't even know personally that you might still impact. It's easy. And again, we're teetering dangerously on politics here, but we encourage everybody here at Keep Your Hat On, encourages everybody out there who is watching us, get your shot. Take care of your fellow man. Keep wearing a mask. Keep washing your hands. And there will be a time when we don't have to do that anymore. But you know what? There's a big segment of the population, roughly 1/3 of the entire population of the planet, for whom mask wearing is old hat for like 20 years. And there's a reason why those numbers are lower. And that's because they already live in a culture where wearing a mask is not only some stigma, but not wearing a mask is frowned upon because it radios to everybody who sees you, you don't care about anybody but yourself. So let's all step up. Let's all do what it takes to get on the other side of this thing so that at some point in the very near future, you won't see 3 of us, or in this case, 4 of us, on 4 separate little islands. We'll be able to shoot this podcast here in my studio all together now. And we look forward to that day. Although I gotta admit, I'm kind of grooving on the home grocery delivery yet.
Yeah, I've gotten kind of hooked on that myself.
It's
it
nice.
beats going to, well, I figured out there are pluses and minuses to that.
Well, exactly. You're not spoiled for choice, and somebody else is making the decision of what cat litter they're going to substitute for you.
Right.
But small price to pay for everybody's safety. And one other thing that we want to say from everybody here at Keep Your Hat On, to all those essential workers who are out there who are maybe listening to or watching us as they go about their day, bringing us all our precious toilet paper and our ice cream. And ice cream is the thing that put all this weight on me. God knows. We're really indebted to you, and we're really grateful. And we want you to stay safe. Wow. We want you to stay safe and be healthy so that the next time we're actually all at the grocery store, we can thank you in person and not having to do it through the screen door. So,
man, here's something I never thought would be a political statement, right? Which is that it's like people who work in grocery stores and people who work in the service industry, for crying out loud, should have been right up front with all of this. Like that seems to me to be a no-brainer. But oh no, it's like they're expendable to their bosses.
Yeah.
Just saying.
And well, and that speaks actually to something that I've observed in the past year that does seem to be shifting in sort of our social consciousness. And that is this idea that employees are just material. They're merely cogs, and as you said, totally expendable. I think we're seeing a real big transition in the thinking there, and there's a lot of deconstruction going on, which I think is very healthy because that gives us the opportunity to rebuild something different and better.
Absolutely, and it also spins into Robert and I's main bailiwick of life being mindfulness-based practice in Buddhism, where if you look at everybody else as other, and we're starting to see that other is breaking down. The concept of other is breaking down, and that's gonna pay dividends all throughout modern life. If we can really get past this idea that we are all our own independent, individual little islands, and understand that the butterfly effect is real, and that we need to look at each other as one thing, almost as a superorganism. Because what happens if all the essential workers suddenly stop essentially working? What happens if they go away? What happens if you repeatedly don't give a shit about your fellow man? Bad things happen. We're going to get more viruses coming out of the permafrost in Siberia, in the Arctic, because we didn't give a shit and we looked at, well, and this is where Mark and I, our brain is one. If you look at nature as something other than yourself, you're already in trouble. You are already way in trouble. And
Andy, what you're talking about there, it calls to mind a little sort of, for lack of a better word, mantra that I came up with for myself when I was a teenager, which was very simply, the smaller you're them, the bigger you're us.
Exactly right. Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. Anyways, tell you what, folks, we're going to be back in just a minute on the other side of this break. We don't know what we're going to talk about, but we're going to talk about it with you. This is Keep Your Hat On. I'm Andy. That's Chris. That's Robert. And that's Mark. And we'll be back shortly. And we're back on Keep Your Hat On. I'm Andrew. That's Chris. That's Robert. And that's Mark. And we're going over to Robert. Robert, what do you got for us today?
Let's talk about the mystery at 35.0056 degrees north, 116.1963 degrees west, also known as the Sentinel Enigma, also known as the Mojave Megaphone.
Okay. Hit me. I want this.
So, in the middle of the Mojave Desert, just a short journey from a ghost town called Crucero, California. It's in California. Is the enigmatic Mojave Megaphone.
That's a that's a mighty mouthful.
And it's called that because of its resemblance to a loudspeaker, of course. The area is very remote and desolate. To reach it, someone would need to use a four-wheel drive vehicle, drive through the Mojave River, then on dirt roads and through sand. It's located close to the Mesquite Spring, about halfway between the towns of Baker and Ludlow.
Boy, that is an armpit. I've been in that part of the world, and there is a whole fat lot of nothing out there.
So yeah,
I have never heard of this.
Yeah, you travel, and on top of this 150-foot rocky hill, you're going to find a giant rusted megaphone. It's securely bolted to two rocks.
So this is a man-made object.
And intentionally placed.
Can you share a screen and put up a picture of this thing, by the way? This is hilarious. Yeah, this is messed up weird.
Check that out.
There we go. Wow.
Right.
Yeah, you want to call this up and have a look. Okay.
Yeah, that's full on weird.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Dude, we're just starting. We're just starting down this rabbit hole.
I think we really should rename these segments
Down the Rabbit Hole,
because that's where we wind up going. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's on top of a 150-foot high rocky hill.
Right.
It's securely bolted to two rocks.
Yeah, for people listening to our audio podcast, this place really does look, for all the world, like the surface of Mars.
It's securely bolted with two rocks, with a crosshair inside, and the object's alignment is north and south. Why? We'll get there.
Gotcha.
Trust me.
Is it true north south? I mean, is it like,
or is it northish?
I don't know whether it's actually true north south, but what's true north, right?
Yeah,
true north has changed in the last couple of years because
keeps moving.
Yeah.
North is shifting.
And so, how big is this thing again, Robert? Do you have a measurement on how long it is?
I'm glad that you asked.
Well, I'm the setup man.
It's 8 feet.
Holy crap!
4 meters.
Big.
It's cumbersome and would have required a lot of effort to put it there in the desert with no road access.
Right.
Estimates, it's around somewhere, the estimates that I could find were somewhere between 600 and 800 pounds.
I was going to say, having industry in my background, I can see from where that flange is that the large bell of the megaphone probably right there weighs about 500 pounds. So yeah, you put the other side of it on, I can easily see 6 to 8, and it looks like the back end it's supported by some kind of spring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a YouTube video for this too.
Oh, good news.
Yes.
Oh, there's a couple of them.
I'm looking at this, and my immediate hot take is that somebody was out four-wheeling back there in their Jeep Willys, and they dropped their transmission, and
it kind of does look a little transmission-esque. Yeah. So anyways, Robert, what's
grab that and take that up that 150
Yeah, so what's the theory here?
It's a riddle. Nobody knows how this heavy artifact got there. No one knows how long it's been there either. There are no markings on it to indicate what it is or where it was made. And like I said, it's in 2 pieces. Each piece is very heavy, and would have taken a few people probably to carry it and drag it up there. Still, it would be really difficult.
And that's not an easy. If you look at the surrounding, hill or whatever we're going to call that rocky precipice, that's a significant scramble up that thing, even if you're not encumbered and have some decent climbing experience. Yeah. Having to haul that son of a gun up, even in 2 pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now another thought here, and a little more serious, less than my flippant remark. It does also look considerably like a rocket nozzle.
It does look a bit like it looks like a bell from
that prompts the question of, what if it was already there and someone went up to it and just put in the mountings? That would be a considerably easier set of tasks.
But the one thing that we can say is that
it's never fucking aliens.
Hey!
Hey, the lizard people are aliens. Okay.
I'm sure Robert's going to be giving us the lizard people talk at in a near future episode.
There's always somebody that's going to say that it's alien.
Yeah, what's his name? That guy on the History Channel.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'll see if I can't drop him into the mix. But I mean, is there a working theory going on here, Robert?
Oh, there's a couple of them.
Okay, number 1.
It's aliens.
Okay, number 2.
It's a device.
Okay, moving right along.
Communicate with aliens, right?
Okay.
I don't know. It could be, maybe the crickets get lonely.
You mean the scorpions?
Giant Mojave crickets.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Maybe they put it there.
It's a hell of a looking thing.
The first one is X marks the spot. So the northern alignment, so looking north, points directly at a distant hill with some peculiar features on it.
Okay.
Scattered around this hill is are large boulders with petroglyphs from the nomadic Shemewivi. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Shemewivi people. Most likely, they drew this hundreds of years. They drew these petros hundreds of years ago. The tribe knew a lot about the Mojave Desert.
Like you do when you live in a desert. You tend to know your terrain.
Including water sources like Mesquite Springs. They probably stayed there. There's a, maybe they stayed there certain times out of the year, or they used the spring as a water source during their travels. Maybe the Shemoivi left a map and a guardian to protect a secret.
Oh, well, the one thing I'm not getting is this thing entirely hollow? Is it hollow all the way through? Or is there something at that flange point?
No. There are some crosshairs in it. It again, a tool pointing out a location. As it points north and it looks at those petroglyphs and those rocks, it could be the location of a cave system that extends for hundreds of miles.
There are a lot of caves in the desert. Most people don't know that the southwestern desert and the Mojave is riddled with caves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this might point to a cave system that reaches hundreds of miles and there may even be a huge hoard of gold.
All right.
The treasure of the enigma.
Well, and one of the things that we'll have to go over here soon,
Treasure of the enigma. That's really good.
One of the things we'll have to go over here in a future show is one of my favorite topics, and that's Finn's treasure that was just recently found.
When was this thing first? When do we first hear about this thing, Robert? When does it show up in the historical?
I can't find when it starts to pop up. I really can't. So back in 34, Dorr says something about black sand beaches along the underground river are loaded with a fortune of gold and nuggets. So again, supporting that cave system theory. The one that, I don't know, it's possible. But what about chemical or weapons testing?
Yeah, that's kind of where my head was going, combined with, one of the things that I nerd out on that actually we're going to be touching here in a segment coming up is the other enigma that exists is all these giant arrows that are all across the United States that can be seen from the air only, that are essentially, people wondered about them for years, but we know now that they were used to help in the Cold War guide Strategic Air Command pilots who might have lost communications and navigation. So there are literally arrows that point all around the United States, and I'll throw a link up to that as well. But this smacks of Cold War mystery.
Well, let's go down that hole, right? So transporting a chemical agent to a location like this was usually done, or to any location, was usually done by rail. Oddly enough, there remains an old railroad track that exists in the pass below the hill. Perhaps the object was a type of siren to warn troops that a train carrying chemical weapons was on its way.
It looks siren-y.
I also found a map where there is close by, at least it used to be a chemical weapons testing range. Military exercises have been conducted in California deserts as far back as 1859. When Fort Mojave was built, actually. Today, there's 4 major installations within the West Mojave. That includes the Naval Air Weapons Station, which is China Lake.
Yeah.
It includes Fort Irwin. It includes Edwards. And it also includes a Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center in 29 Palms. Now, in November of 43, the U.S. Navy set up, this is great, this is where it gets juicy. The U.S. Navy set up a test station near the town of Inyorkun. I hope I'm pronouncing that right as well.
They can't sue us anyways, don't worry about it.
This test station was codenamed Project Camel and collaborated with the Manhattan Project.
As everything was back then.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The site was used to produce rockets and aircraft weaponry before being used to trail the paths of model atomic bombs being dropped from a B-29 superfortress.
Right.
So that's just a little history of what's going on in there. The Nevada testing site, now the Nevada National Security Site, isn't too far away. That's where all of U.S. Continental nuclear weapons are tested.
Right.
These tests were conducted above ground until '63, and now have been since moved underground. So there's a theory that it is part of a rocket system, or perhaps a pipeline ventry, going to what Chris was kind of talking about. It's an hourglass enclosure that's used to control the flow and rate of a fluid. But really, 100 feet on that ridge?
Well, and the thing that I see when I look at that is the frustrated machinist in me looks at that and goes, you've got two bells that are attached by a flange that are bolted together. I can see that they used old square bolts. So for me, that says pre-1952 when we switched over to hexagonal bolts. And there doesn't seem to be a way to mount anything on the smaller end. Because, both those pieces are conical. I'm interested in the crosshairs. And I'm interested in the potential acoustic properties of this. Because
I get there.
Yeah, well, okay, then let's get there.
It's also said that the megaphone was in fact a siren, used to warn personnel and clear out an area before a test was conducted. It has some similarities to a siren circa 1940, 1950s. Mm-hmm. Such tests were conducted in secret and remote areas of the Mojave Desert.
Like this?
During that same time period. And so there's another theory that it is a measuring instrument. For instance, for detecting long-range shock waves, because it has crosshair-shaped metal strips inside of it. Others believe a gun sight or a sighting device of some sort. Its proximity to Edwards is a much bigger clue. Edwards is where the Air Force did a lot of sound barrier experiments, including Yeager's famous flights.
See, now we're getting somewhere that I feel intellectual traction with.
I saved the best for last.
Oh, like you always do.
Can I interrupt here for 1 second? One of the pieces that really fascinates me about this is as you're sort of unwinding these different theories and interpretations. One of the things I keep tripping up on as I'm looking at this object is it's got these little stabilizer wings on both cones.
Yeah, I see that.
Evenly spaced. And I can't get my head around what the possible purpose of that would be in the context of what you're talking about.
Well, that to me looks like something that's used to provide stability inside a larger assembly. As a joining flange, they are on both the large bell and the small bell. It looks to be that there are at least 5 of them around, because I'm not seeing it on 45 degrees. It looks like they're more like 30 degrees. But I'm thinking acoustics, because the other thing about this is it does not appear that it is adjustable. You cannot change the orientation of this thing. It is hard bolted down in its forever orientation on 2 large rocks.
Yeah, and I could see where it being of some sort of measuring instrument related to either flight in terms of shock or sound waves.
And part of me is wondering if maybe this is aimed in a certain direction.
Waves,
Go ahead.
even shock. Go ahead.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You just mentioned shockwaves. I'm thinking something along the lines of this is somehow aimed either at Russia or at one of our large testing facilities to essentially funnel a shock wave from a distance in order to measure its force.
Pretty good.
You know,
well, if you look at the map, and we'll link to all this below, of course. But there's a map that I have that shows right where that chemical site was.
Mm-hmm.
Chemical test, right? Who knows what that was?
Maybe it's a big nose.
You know, even if it was a nuclear test, you'd still want to measure. You know, I could see those guys wanting to measure sound or shock waves.
Oh, absolutely. And
maybe the fins just stabilize it, because you're right. One part of it is built on springs, and you can't really see the other side. But I would imagine that might be spring loaded as well.
Yeah.
And so, that just might stabilize it in the path of some immense shock.
Well, the
flanges all have the pictures I'm looking at. The flanges all have holes through them too.
Yeah.
They look like they belong some. You know.
Yeah. It does look like it does look like something that should either attach or go into something else. You know, it looks like a part of something bigger. But at the same time, it also kind of looks like a 1952 beat poet art installation on top of a rock.
It does.
So
it does.
Well, bring this home for us, Robert.
Well, you know, I gotta say, I think.
Yeah, what's your favorite? What's your favorite of these theories?
Aliens? No, I'm joking.
It just gives me an opportunity to drop that soundbite in again.
It's never fucking aliens.
Alien ants. Huh?
Oh,
Nobody
it's
ever
them.
talks about
Man,
Yeah,
I love that movie.
I think it's absolutely got something to do with the military.
Yeah, it's Cold
right?
War
There's a number of
something.
installations.
It's Cold War something. There are legacies of Cold War research all over the place.
That desert is so vast and so expansive, and there are so many weird and interesting things out there that we don't even know about, because it's the desert.
It's
right?
the desert, and the desert keeps its secrets unless somebody gets out there with a high-resolution camera and takes the picture that I'm looking at. Tell you what, everybody, we're going to be back in just a minute. Again, links to this fascinating research by Robert below. This is Keep Your Hat On. That's Mark Peterson. That's Chris Vicano. That's Robert Anthony. I'm Andrew Scott. We'll be back in just a minute. And we're back. This is Keep Your Hat On, the show where we don't even know where we're going to go. I'm Andrew Scott, along with Robert Anthony and Chris Vicano, and our good friend Dr. Mark C.E. Peterson, professor of philosophy in the University of Wisconsin. What are we calling that ecosystem now? What's the official name?
Wow.
It's changed a lot since I was there.
I'm actually I was farmed out to University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee. So I work for them now.
All right.
That's our new mothership.
Yeah, exactly. The boss. One of the things that we want to make a quick mention of is if you're enjoying the podcast, number one, we want to do this for a while, and we would really appreciate your support. So as always, I'm sure you're sick of hearing it, but please like, click, and subscribe. If you hit that bell button, you'll know when we have a new episode up. We're going to be trying to do 2 episodes every month at a minimum. We might jump in with some special content when we all find something interesting that we feel you need to know about right away. But you can also support us through Patreon, and do drop into our website, which is kyhopodcast.com. Most of the links that we're going to be having here on our YouTube channel, and for those of you who are listening, go to the website, because we're going to be mirroring a lot of our content and our discoveries and our links over there for each episode, and we'll also have episode breakdowns and a few other fun things. But do give us a like, click, and subscribe, and support us if you can, because we're really going to be trying to do something fun here, and something that might be a little bit different, where you don't have to sweat hearing the latest news of the day. We'd like to actually be something that puts a smile on your face. So support us if you can. Now,
there's important work. There's important work to be done here, Andrew. We just talked about this enigma in the desert.
right?
I've been exploring the ongoing enigma of how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop Tootsie Roll.
That is an age-old question.
The official answer, as we know.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Robert.
I said, how far down this have you gotten to?
We're getting
Professor?
there. Well, 57 right now. But, the official answer for years was 3, as we'll remember.
3.
Right.
But again, this is one of the mysteries that we have to continue to explore.
It's so important.
Per square inch is an owl's beak, because I have a feeling that can.
Robert, I've wondered about that
a lot.
Yeah.
Before we wander into the owl's beak, I've got a philosophical question.
Now wait a minute. I have to remember wanders into the owl's beak, because that is going to be the name of a song that I write at some point in my future, because it's awesome.
Wonderful. So we need to establish a definition here. What actually constitutes getting to the center, to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop?
Oh.
Is it one little spot of exposure, or is it all of the hard candy removed from the Tootsie Roll portion, or is it somewhere in between?
See, we've all done this, though. We've all done this, right? Where you get most of it, the hard candy almost gone, and there's like this thin shell left over.
And it's, do I crush it or not?
It always reminded me of like peeling marshmallows after you roast them, and you're being really careful to get that last layer off, and then you just hit it with a tooth and the thing cracks, and then you got to start over again.
Well, you eat marshmallows weird. Who peels their marshmallow, buddy?
When you roast them? Are you kidding? You don't do that?
No, it's just in face hole.
The hill I'm gonna die on.
No.
I've done that. Because
now wait, do you re-roast? Do you re-roast after you've cleaned it off?
No. You pull the top off and you get just the soft gushy part.
Because then it's like the never-ending gobstopper of marshmallows, where you can just roast it, suck it off, roast it, clean it off, on and on.
Roast it, take the skin off, eat the skin, roast
okay,
it again.
And there's the song that I'll be writing, which is roast it, suck it off, clean it off.
Jeez. I apologize. So I'm going to switch us over here to a different segment.
This was supposed to be an introduction to your enigma, Andrew.
So
whatever. Please go on.
It's all fine. It's all good.
By the way, I have an answer I just looked up the answer for owl beaks.
Good.
The answer is 125 pounds per square inch.
Damn.
Holy crap.
Wow.
That is significant. If I remember right, a large rat trap, a huge killer rat trap is about 200 pounds per square inch. So you're talking about an owl's beak is the better part of the strength of a large rat trap. And there's a fact actually, now.
Yep. I have one more little detail here.
Please.
The site I found this at is actually better than the answer. The site is called 11 Birds Who Could Beat the Shit Out of Me.
And we will be linking to that shit down below, because that's something cool that we all need to look into.
I'll send you the link.
Oh, bless your heart. So what I want to talk about today is something that I find absolutely fascinating. I'm wearing the wrong shirt today. Today I'm wearing the logo of the Nostromo, but I'm a space nerd. Have always been a space nerd. And one of the things that I am endlessly fascinated with, of course, is the spacecraft that we have out in our solar system. And, we're doing this just a few weeks after we successfully again landed on Mars with one of the craziest ass contraptions you've ever seen. The Perseverance Mars rover is an absolute marvel of engineering, where that thing came screaming down through the atmosphere, threw off a shield, piloted itself down by being able to ordinate and look at the surface of Mars and actively navigate its way down while unable to communicate back to Earth. Everything was autopilot. Everybody in NASA refers to that as the 7 minutes of terror, because they are completely incapable of communicating with it. And then when we got down through the thin atmosphere, and we were about a couple hundred yards off the surface, this thing dropped a sky crane and literally hung the thing and touched it down on its landing perfectly. And by the way, I don't know, have any of you seen the parachute shot of the Perseverance rover landing?
Yep.
This is such ultimate nerd points. This is such ultimate nerd points. It is a red and white striped canopy, and the red patterns on the canopy in binary actually spell out the slogan of the NASA team that sent the lander to Mars.
Oh, brother.
Yeah, that
You've just been elevated. You've just been elevated in geek status. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's ultimate geek points. Other spacecraft, I'm of the generation, Chris, Robert, and I are all of the generation Mark's paving the way for us. But of course, we grew up watching us go out into our first major forays out into the solar system. And currently the farthest away man-made object probably is Voyager 1, which, according to my information, Voyager 1 is approximately 13 billion miles away from Earth. It is past heliopause, which is the zone where the sun's influence in the solar wind does not permeate out further from the center of our solar system. And that's where the heliopause, you're getting in the area of things like the Kuiper belt and the Oort cloud. And I just like saying Oort cloud because who doesn't want to say Oort? And the Oort cloud is where all our most of our cometary bodies come from. Voyager 1 is now moving out into the Oort cloud, this huge nebulous swarm of tiny, tiny icy bodies, and is heading out into interstellar space. But we've got Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 are very far away. They're all very fast-moving objects. Up until the New Horizons mission, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 were two of the fastest man-made objects ever.
Ooh.
The New Horizons probe that went to Pluto surpassed them in speed, mostly due to help from having done a number of elliptical orbits around the sun and getting gravitational assists from both Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, I believe.
Right.
But they were going hell-bent for leather. And
do we know how fast Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 are going?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, we do know that Voyager 1 is, again, it's 21 billion kilometers from Earth, and it is going, I want to say it's going at 38 miles per second. What if I told you that there is a chance that the fastest man-made object in space is a manhole cover?
I would buy it.
Okay.
That would be worth knowing, Andy.
Yeah. Yes, a manhole cover.
How did that get out there? How did it get out there?
With a really big boom. So in 1956, we were doing nuclear testing out in, oddly enough, Robert, the desert. As we were, for the first time, we were detonating nuclear bombs, nuclear weapons, doing nuclear tests underground. So in 1956, they were doing tests that were part of Operation Plumb Bob. And there was the first underground nuclear detonation was done, but the first subterranean test was the nuclear device test that was known as Pascal A. And it was lowered 500 feet down into a borehole. However, the detonation that they achieved was 50,000 times greater than they had predicted.
Oops.
Right, yeah. As is so often the case with nuclear weapons, that one kind of surpassed our own best efforts. So, and
a little of this.
Yeah, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Boom. So what it wound up doing is it shot a jet of fire 500 feet into the air. Now, they all kind of went, maybe we shouldn't do that. So what they did was on the Pascal B test, which of course there was going to be a Pascal B test because it was so much fun the first time.
Why? Why not?
So when they put the nuclear device down into the ground, down another 500-foot borehole, they plugged it with a whole lot of concrete, and then they put a 900
kilogram. Solves everything.
Right? Exactly. They put a 900 kilogram, which is roughly a ton, 2,000 pound, 1 inch thick steel plate, and they fused it closed. Because now nothing bad is going to happen. And they lit this puppy off. And what I've got here is when Pascal B was detonated, the blast went straight up the test shaft, launching the cap into the atmosphere at a speed of more than 66 kilometers per second. That is 41 miles per second, or 240,000 kilometers per hour, or 150,000 miles per hour. Oddly enough, the plate was never found. Now,
do they have a trajectory?
Well, here's the thing. Well, when you're going at that speed, you don't really have a trajectory. You just have straight ahead until morning. A high-speed camera, which back in the day, a high-speed camera for the 1950s was about 1,000 frames per second. You can do that on your phone now. But they did have a high-speed camera in place shooting 1,000 frames per second. Was focused on the borehole because studying the velocity of the plate was deemed scientifically interesting. Okay. Annihilating all of us is not scientifically interesting, but watching a manhole cover, that's scientifically valid. So after the detonation, when looking at the footage, the plate appeared in one frame. Only one frame. And even so, it was enough for Dr. Robert Brownlee, the person who was in charge of this portion of the project, was able to measure its speed. And Brownlee joked that the best estimate of the cover's speed from the photographic evidence was that it was, quote, going like a bat, end quote. And he estimated that the explosion combined with the specific design of the shaft could accelerate the plate to approximately 6 times the escape velocity needed to leave Earth.
I just want to know, can you put this in a timeline? I mean, where are we from this manhole cover to Sputnik? Because I'm just envisioning...
Very interesting that you ask. Sputnik was launched a few weeks later. So there is a chance that America actually did beat the Soviets into space with a manhole cover.
With a manhole cover.
And what's also interesting is, I mean, there's some really good science, and I don't want to come off as saying that there is definitely a manhole cover in space. But there's a chance because we've never recovered it. We know it was going straight up like a bat. And yeah, there's a chance that it could have been partially vaporized due to the explosion, to the nuclear explosion. It also, there's plenty of good science that says that at that speed, going through our atmosphere, it most likely would have vaporized or at least degraded so far as to not be a manhole cover anymore. But
I think that's a perfectly good explanation as to why the aliens came.
Well, that's why I wanted to follow you up with yours, because apparently there's a big horn out in the Mojave Desert that's aimed at a nuclear testing site to try to track a manhole cover being launched into space.
Right on.
But what's really interesting to me is that if by some chance this thing actually made it into space, going at the rate it was going, even if so much as a quarter made it into space at that velocity, it would be further out than Voyager and would definitely be the farthest man-made object from the Earth. So there's a good chance that somewhere out just past the Oort cloud is a manhole cover heading towards the nearest star. And I would love to think, and Mark will chuckle at this, I'd love to think that it's just spinning over and over, and from the right angle you can just see Manitowoc.
Boundaries.
Exactly.
I'm sort of hopeful that I hope they find Voyager first. I'm just going to put that out there.
You mean V'ger?
Although it's probably
V'ger.
V'ger.
Yep. Now I find this actually a little unsettling in one regard, and that is that what you're saying is that we have essentially blind fired a projectile into outer space. And I see it. I mean, it's eventually going to hit something, and knowing our dumb luck, it's gonna hit some other alien satellite. They're gonna get pissed off, think it's an act of war,
no doubt,
and trace it back to here.
It's like the cosmic version of having to go over and apologize for breaking your neighbor's window with a baseball, except for the fact that it's us.
Some cosmic damage to some alien culture, and they were like, "All right, pack it up. We're going down there. We will kick their ass."
But it's never fucking aliens. Tell you what, we're gonna go to another break here. We'll be right back with something else absolutely friggin' fascinating. We don't know what it is, and neither do you. We'll be right back. This is Keep Your Hat On the Narrowband Broadcast Network. For Chris, Robert, Mark, I'm Andy. We'll be right back. That's pretty much what we got for you here today on Keep Your Hat On, folks. Again, please do us a favor, like, click, subscribe. If you feel like kicking us a few bucks to keep these LED lights on, you can always visit us on our Patreon page. But until next time, do us a favor. For Chris, Robert, Mark, and myself, keep your hat on. We may end up miles from here. Thanks a lot, folks. We'll talk to you again in a couple weeks. Stay safe, wear your mask, get your shot, and we'll see you again really soon. Bye-bye.
Well, there's a chunk of time you can't get back. From Portland, Oregon, this has been Keep Your Hat On, a big little show about a whole lot of nothing in particular. Keep Your Hat On is a Narrowband Broadcast Network production in association with PodSquadPDX.com. Andrew Scott, executive producer. Robert Anthony and Chris Vicano, associate producers. Our theme music was written and produced by Andrew Scott, along with help from Ron Kajawa. Website design and maintenance by Vicano Creative, Chris Vicano Webmaster. Available at VicanoCreative.com. Audio and video production by Andrew Scott, available at AndrewScottMedia.com. Got ideas or comments for the show? Email us at talkback@kyhopodcast.com, and don't forget to like, click, and subscribe. On behalf of the boys, I'm your announcer, Michael Brumage. Thanks for listening. I guess.
Roast it, suck it off, clean it off. Roast it, suck it off, clean it off. Roast it, suck it off, clean it off. Roast it, suck it off, clean it off.
NBBN.
The Narrowband Broadcast Network.
The focus is on you.